Hello, I'm Michael Wheatley, Music Director of the Skagit Symphony. Victoria here and I would like to welcome you to Part 1 of Skagit Symphony's Stream-A-Thon. Over the course of this first program and the three which will follow, you'll get to know our orchestra anew, kind of from the inside out. We've taken the orchestra and divided it into multiple sections, so you'll hear chamber ensembles of strings and woodwinds and brass and percussion. It's a wonderful opportunity to hear and get to know all of the colors of the orchestra individually. And they have prepared wonderful performances for all of you from many different composers and many different styles and eras from all over the world. Additionally, we have three of my very favorite guest artists joining us, one on each of the first three nights, and a very special old friend joining us on Part 4. We have interviews with all of them and performances of solo performances from all of them as well. So, we mean to inspire you and bring you some peace. Take a break from the outside world. Sit back, relax for 45 to 60 minutes or so, and let us inspire you. And we hope it will also inspire generosity. The Skagit Symphony is in need of your support as much as ever. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, we've been coming to the Skagit Valley Symphony for many, many years. It's such a great place to come to. Why on earth would you go down to Seattle when you've got such wonderful symphony players as up here? Thank you so much for all that you do.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Hello, this is violinist Shintaro Taneda, and I'm now here in college in San Francisco. And I just hope everyone's doing well back north and staying healthy and also staying happy through all the craziness that's going on in the world. And yeah, I miss you guys, and I hope to be back soon to perform for you guys again. Yeah.
Hello, Skagit Symphony fans. Thank you all for your support of our wonderful community orchestra. Our family chooses to support Skagit Symphony because we believe it is important to give local musicians the opportunity to entertain our community through various programs and live performances. The idea of enjoying a truly remarkable orchestra without having to travel to Seattle or Vancouver makes it an easy choice for us to attend events at McIntyre Hall. We also love the Symphony's commitment to educate and inspire our youth to appreciate classical music. Thank you, Skagit Symphony, for your gift of music to our community.
I love playing in the Skagit Symphony. Such a great connection with other musicians, doing wonderful music, and being local.
Our first performance tonight is a bit of an unusual one, an English horn quartet. Now, that doesn't mean that it's four English horns playing together. In fact, it's English horn, violin, cello, and string bass. This work was composed by the brother of a very famous composer, that famous composer being Franz Joseph Haydn. His lesser known but wonderfully talented brother Michael Haydn composed this work. It's a rather unusual work as well with regards to the instrumentation. For example, the cello part is fiendishly difficult because it is a very high part all the time, very high on the instrument. And the reason for this is because it wasn't actually composed for the cello at all. It was composed for the violoncello da spalla, or the violoncello piccolo, which means a shoulder fiddle, a shoulder cello, or it might be held in a lap at times, but often with a strap. It was held very much like a guitar and bowed from the side. It's a smaller instrument, so it's higher in pitch. Well, what that means is the cello is no longer a bass instrument, which is why there's a string bass in this ensemble to round out these three other high instruments. This work is a rondo. So what is a rondo? Well, a rondo is basically just a musical form, a structure for the composer will use to organize all of their musical thoughts. So we have a familiar theme which begins, which in this case is demonstrated by the Oreo cookie, and then we have something else, and then that first theme comes back again, and then something entirely different again, and then that first theme comes back again. So this idea is there's a recurring theme that keeps repeating itself. I promise you, you know a rondo whether you realize it or not. Like this one. So this most famous of all rondo themes is, of course, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart's Turkish March, which was the last movement of a piano sonata, actually. The theme for Michael Haydn's, the A theme, or the Oreo cookie part that keeps coming back, for Michael Haydn's rondo sounds like this. Another fun thing to listen to throughout this work is all of the show-offy sections that happen in between all those Oreo cookies. So you'll hear the familiar theme, and the English horn gets a chance to show off for a while, or the cello gets to show off for a while, and then finally I get to show off for a while on the first violin part. And at the end of each of these sections, right before we play the Oreo cookie familiar theme again, is what's called a cadenza. And that's when every other instrument is quiet except for the one person performing a cadenza. Every instrument of this group gets their own cadenza before the end of the work. And Michael Haydn actually wrote in his score a suo piacere, so meaning at your pleasure, or play whatever you please. So music of that era was a lot more like jazz than it is modern classical music. These days we follow every note on the page, and rarely do we stray from it. But in Michael Haydn's time, it was expected that that performers would take some liberties and show their own creativity and find ways of showing off their strengths with the work. So given that this is Beethoven's 250th birthday this year, we decided to take some of Beethoven's notes and use those as inspiration for our cadenzas. So if you're familiar with Beethoven symphonies, you'll enjoy these.
My name is Lisette Rusen-Mast. The Skagit Symphony reminds me of a little blue engine that huffed and puffed, saying, "I think I can, I think I can." And it did, and so did we. In the past more than 50 years, I've watched the symphony go from an organization that held performances in the Mount Vernon High School gym, where often we could hear sounds coming from the locker room, then to churches, and finally to our state-of-the-art McIntyre Hall. For many years, that evolution was supported by a very devoted group of friends called Friends of the Symphony, who sold cookies at performances, went around to family and friends, and did anything and everything they could to keep the symphony viable. We've all had the experience of being moved by music, whether it be listening to the Beach Boys, Pearl Jam, or Beethoven. Music is food for our souls. It can provoke so many things: emotions, thought, inspiration, comfort, or just the desire to break out and dance. It always seems to be part of the fabric of every important life event in our lives. In this day and age, when the world seems upside down and the stress sometimes overwhelming, it can be through music that we are transformed into a different state of mind, even if for a short period of time. I will always be incredibly grateful to the musicians, many whom drive large distances to attend weekly rehearsal, and who practice many hours to give the gift of music freely and from their hearts. They are the quiet but noble heroes of the symphony, as are also the members of the symphony board. It is on them to steer us in a positive direction and keep us financially sound. Although there is responsibility on the symphony board, the comradeship of the members has been known to birth many lifetime friendships. New members are always more than welcome, and no knowledge of music is required. Please help us to keep the tradition of the Skagit Symphony alive and moving forward by attending performances, telling your friends and neighbors about us, or supporting the various events that contribute toward our long-term vision of sharing beautiful music with the people of Skagit Valley and beyond. Thank you.
So the first guest artist joining us for part one is arguably the musician I know better than any other in the world. Jennifer and I have been friends and colleagues for over 30 years, and we were married for 6 years there in the middle. Many of you have met my daughter Mia when she visited during my first season last year. Well, Jennifer and I were in the Cincinnati Symphony Youth Orchestra together. We performed tons of chamber music together when we were at the College Conservatory of Music, CCM, in Cincinnati, and you'll hear her refer to that in the interview that follows. And we performed the Elgar Cello Concerto together with my orchestra in Cincinnati, Ohio. I was so excited and looking forward to having her play the Dvorak Cello Concerto for all of you this season. Sadly, we'll have to postpone that for a couple of seasons until we can bring her back. But I'm elated that you'll get to know her now through this interview and to hear her realization of two movements of Bach's Suite in C for solo cello. She's a masterful interpreter of Bach's cello suites. All right. Well, I thought it would be fun to start off talking about your cello a little bit because I love this story. So tell us a little bit about your instrument and how it came into your life.
Well, before I found this instrument, I found it in 1997. I was finishing up my work at CCM, and before I had found it, I was playing on a massive instrument that was built on the template of a Montagnana, which is about the biggest cello that you can have. And it was
For our audience at home, CCM is the College Conservatory of Music in Cincinnati, Ohio, where Jennifer and I both attended. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I had been playing on that instrument. I did my recitals on it, and it was killing me because it was so big, and I had very small hands. I don't know if you can tell. Small hands. So the string length and the stretching, it hurt a lot. So I thought, well, I need a smaller cello. So I searched around. I happened to go to Mernig & Son, which is now closed. It unfortunately went out of business, and they had a bunch of cellos. And I tried $300,000 cellos. I tried $50,000 cellos. I tried all these different cellos. And then I saw this little guy kind of sitting off by itself. And I said, what about that one? And so they went and checked the price. The price was right. I played on it and absolutely loved it. And it actually is a 3/4 size cello, which is much, much smaller than the Montagnana. And it has lovely string length. I can reach everything. And it was made in 1789. Approximately, right in Paris, right at the time of the Revolution and Reign of Terror and everything. So I decided to name it Napoleon because it is French and little and makes a very big noise. So, yeah, that's my cello story.
That's great. That was in Philadelphia, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, it was Philadelphia.
Yeah. I remember.
Yeah, I stayed with your grandmother.
Yeah, I remember that.
Or maybe I just did dinner. I think I stayed in a hotel, but I went to dinner with her. That was fun.
Both, yeah. She turned 97. Believe it or not.
That woman is incredible.
I know, she's amazing. Hasn't changed a bit either.
No.
So, Marna, why don't you take the next question?
Okay, well, we were wondering if you have a favorite another story about a performance you've done somewhere in the world that you could share with us.
Oh, gosh, let's see. The one that is coming to mind, I think it's got to be when I was right at the end of my senior year of high school, and I played with the CSO. That's probably like one of the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra. That's probably one of the more seminal events. And and I performed the Lalo Concerto, and it was with a very large crowd. It was an educational concert. And so the entire auditorium was packed. It fits about 3,000 people. And
Wow.
yes, all squirmy children, but to walk out there and have this massive crowd to perform to in that kind of a hall with that kind of an orchestra, it was phenomenal. And I also, the high school that I went to was very, very supportive. So they brought made a field trip out of it and brought like an entire cheering section for me. And when I walked out on stage, it was like a rock concert. I mean, it was super cool. So,
That's really great.
That was pretty exciting, It was a big one. And, there's been other really amazing things, like playing in Germany with an orchestra that I toured with, and master classes and stuff with guys like Jano Starker. Those were all really incredible, but having your own cheering section in a hall that big, that's probably one of the top.
That's a great story. Thank you.
So I see you're in your studio, is that right?
Yes.
Your teaching studio?
Yep.
I'm in my kind of studio. I'm in our orchestra room at the high school here in Vernon. I'm just curious, how has the pandemic kind of affected your teaching or the music or interacting with students over there?
Well, I mean, it hasn't affected teaching a lot, except that I've had to get used to teaching via iPad, which was not something I really did. I never wanted to do Skype lessons. I would do that occasionally because I was taught at Earlham College, which is a small liberal arts college in Richmond, Indiana. It's about an hour and a half commute. I did that for many, many years. And so occasionally if I had to do a makeup lesson, I would do a FaceTime or Skype, but I never enjoyed it. So there was a certain amount of dread going into this, thinking, okay, 2 weeks, extra long spring break, we'll be good, get back into it. And then, no, it's this and this. Now I've gotten used to it, and I like it. I'm going to have a time going back to the commute and having to drive up the highway and sit in traffic, because this is kind of nice, and my students have adapted. We've got a good system. The only thing that has been a real bummer, as you guys also know, is everything performance-wise is canceled, so that's kind of a bummer, but there's it's not canceled, it's just postponed to later dates. That's what most things are doing. It's interesting to see what different organizations are doing to keep things alive, how they're managing to find performance opportunities, or, like with the Stream-A-Thon, it's very cool how people are making it work. But yeah, I mean, now that I'm used to it, I kind of like it.
I have to admit, I agree with you. I mean, I have a small studio here of violin and piano students, and I thought I was going to hate it. I thought I was just going to have to endure online lessons, but after about a month and a half, I don't miss the driving at all. It's super convenient to just teach out of my own home and be done.
Yeah.
It's great. So
I know.
I'm not anxious to go back to the way it was. Even though the lessons, I mean, I don't know about you, but I find the lessons are maybe 80% as effective, I would have, because there's a difference. You can't tell somebody, it's harder to show somebody physically what to do. Are you finding that as well?
To a certain extent. What I actually found is that my students are kind of chewing through repertoire a little faster than they did. Yeah, it actually, in some ways, has made me more efficient. And also, I would do a thing where I would have my students make a video of themselves because of the lag and, possibilities of things breaking down. So I want to see the whole thing cohesive. So they will send me a video of themselves, and I'll watch it in the first portion of their lesson. So I'll get an idea of what they're doing. Then I'll write down everything I want them to do. And it'll all be in the order and the system and everything I want them to do it in. And when I write down the notes, it tends to get a lot better results than, say, like when a parent is translating through the notes from the student. Everything's written down, and then so it makes the whole process sort of streamlined. It's a little bit more work for me.
Yeah.
I find, I have to do the notes sometimes after the lesson, and so I'm actually having to work a little bit beyond the clock, but they're moving pretty good, actually.
You're a good teacher, Jen, seriously.
Thank you.
You really go the extra mile. It's no wonder your students are so loyal.
Aww,
right. It's a really good idea, and I'm sure teachers who are watching this will appreciate that insight.
Hello, my name is Marna Fletcher. I'm Executive Director of Skagit Symphony, which means that I'm like a conductor behind the scenes for all the organizational ways it takes to support our music making. Something that I love about my job is that I serve at the special intersection of music and community. Of course, music is at the center of who we are, yet community is the matrix that the music springs from. In fact, as a community orchestra, our music making is impossible without community engagement and support on many levels. First of all, there's the community of musicians who all volunteer their time and talent to bring orchestral music to life for us. Then there's the community we create at each concert, the experience of that magical synergy shared between orchestra and audience. We so miss this and are so hopeful that by springtime we can find ways to create safe, live concert experiences once again. And then there's our local arts community that Skagit Symphony has been a part of proudly for over 40 years, standing beside and cheering on our sister organizations in theater, opera, dance, visual arts, and music. And then, of course, there's the wider community whom we give back to in normal times, offering live orchestral performances in beautiful McIntyre Hall, including our beloved education program that reaches over 2,000 children every year, introducing them to the instruments and music of a symphony orchestra. We are still dedicated to bringing music to the wider community through these pandemic times, and are now recording small ensembles comprised of Skagit Symphony musicians to be combined and offered as virtual experiences online, a taste of which we're offering through this Stream-A-Thon series. I hope you've enjoyed part one of this series, which we have created in the spirit of bringing people together through music, even if it's just through computer screens at this time. I invite you to make a donation to Skagit Symphony in support of our musical efforts. We promise to transform your gift into community music making and music education that will enrich the lives of thousands of people over the course of this season. Please click on the donate button next to this video, or if it's not showing, just go to skagitsymphony.com and click it there. On our website, you'll see many options for giving today: donating online, mailing a check, or giving us a phone call. You can also support the symphony by making a distribution from your IRA or donor advised fund, or by checking with your employer to see if they have a match program. Thank you so very much. With your help, Skagit Symphony can survive and even thrive with creativity and dedication during these times, and make music for the benefit of all.
Thank you so much for joining us for part one of Skagit Symphony's Stream-A-Thon. I hope you had a wonderful time. Here's a sneak peek at part two.
At the beginning of the Mendelssohn event. Oh.
Sit again. All right, once more. Sorry, go ahead, yeah. Da, 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 da.